All right, so here we have a in server.js, we've declared an express server. We're listening at port 3000. Also, we have several incoming routes to ask for data from quizzes, from a particular quiz and whatnot. Now obviously here we would have plenty more different URLs that we need to encode, right? Ones that have posts, puts, deletes, all sorts of gets. I mean, this could get out of hand. It could get pretty sophisticated, pretty complicated. So to manage this growing complexity of endpoints that we need to manage, a good practice is to break them up into different files, right? That manage different sections or different set of URLs to respond to. So here, since we are dealing with quizzes, I'm going to create another file, right, where I'm going to put all this code in there, right? Now, that file is going to be playing the role of a controller, right, where is receiving HTTP events, right, and we want to execute certain code based on those events, HTTP events that are coming in, right? So let me grab all this code, right? I'm going to cut it from here, and I'm going to now head over here, and I'm going to create another file, a directory here, new directory. I'm going to call it controllers. And in controllers, we're going to create a new JavaScript file. We're going to call it, let's see, so this is the quizzes.controller.server.js, right? And I'm going to paste this content right here. Okay. All right, so if we look at this content now, notice that we don't have, for instance, a reference to app, right? That reference was instantiated in the servers here in the servers, right? Server.js. So we need a way of passing a reference of app down to here, right? And we also need a way for this server.js to be able to bring and execute this code, this controller's code. So the way we're going to do that is that we're going to wrap this entire piece of code inside of a function, an anonymous function, right? Function that is going to take as argument app, right? Which is we're going to pass app from here, from the server.js. We're going to pass it down into our quizzes here. So there it is. So we have all this content, right, wrapped inside of this function. Okay. So to be able to pass it, what we're going to do is that we're going to export this entire function. We're going to export it so that it can be imported from the servers.js, right? So the way we export things from JavaScript in Node.js is slightly different the way we do it in JavaScript in ES6 and doing it in React or Angular. So the way you do it here in Node.js is that you declare here, there's a global variable called module that allows you to bind any exports to a variable exports, right? Anything that you assigned to the exports of the module variable is readily available to anybody who does a require or it tries to import this file, right? So there it is. So we're binding this function to the export, so that now from the servers I can now require it, right? I can now load this controller that we called it quizzes controller. We can require this this new controller, right, that lives inside of this controller directory. Since we're here in server, we need to navigate inside of the controls directory and find that file. So the way we do that, right, is we use a unlike this express. This express is by default it looks for libraries or files inside of the node_modules. Here we don't want to look in there, right, because it actually lives in a different directory, controllers. So to specify other directories, we need to use a relative path, right? We're going to start looking from the current directory. We're going to go down into the controllers directory, and then there's our controllers. There it is. Notice that by default, the .js at the end of the file is optional. You don't need to put it. It's understood that it's a JavaScript or JSON file. Once we've done that, right, we can notice that what the require is loading, right, is this file, right? Is loading this function. So this require is returning a function which is being bound to this local variable quizzes controller. So I can call this function, right? I can call this function, right? And this function is expecting me to pass this variable, this parameter app, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to grab that app and pass it right there. Okay. If we do that and we go back to the controller, stop it, restart, we go back and refresh, this still works just the same. Okay. One other thing is that this controller variable, it is unlikely that I'm going to reuse this controller variable anywhere else in my Express file here, right? So there's no real need to bind this to any variable if I'm not going to use it anywhere else. So what I could do, I can instead just remove that, right, and then just use this more abbreviated equivalent code, right? Which is, this piece here is basically returns a function, and once that I have that function, I can invoke, app on it, or I can pass the parameters, the app for that function.